Today we're going back to basics. Whether you have just bought your first iPhone, switched to iPhone from Android, or are upgrading from an older generation and want to get the most out of your new iPhone, this is the video for you. I will cover everything you need to know, from the iPhone 13's essential new features to showing you plenty of tips on how to optimize it in terms of settings, battery life, and performance along the way. This is a longer video, but is short when compared to how many hours we all use our phones each day, week, month, etc. Believe me, this video will make your experience better and help you get the most out of your iPhone and iOS. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so to start, let's do a brief physical tour of the phone. Now on the front here, we have the Face ID sensor, as well as the front-facing camera and the earpiece speaker. And then looking at the left side of the phone, first we have the volume rocker. So we have the volume up as well as the volume down button. And then just above that, we have the mute toggle. So having this down with the orange indicator showing will mean that your phone is on silent mode and will therefore be silent to all notifications coming in. And then we can simply trigger this up to trigger the loud mode, and this way of course your speaker will be activated when you receive any notifications, and triggering it back down will go back into silent mode, and you'll also feel the phone vibrate slightly when silent mode is on. And then just beneath that we have the SIM tray. Now this can be ejected using the SIM tool that is provided in the box, or any sort of small paper clip that you could fit in this hole. And the iPhone 13, like most phones these days, uses a nano SIM. Going over to the left side of the phone, we simply have one button, and this is the side button, which will also act as your power button and sleep wake button. And then finally on the bottom of the phone we have a microphone, as well as the lightning port and second speaker unit. Now this will work in conjunction with the earpiece speaker to provide stereo sound. And this brings me to some of the essential gestures. Now first, to unlock your phone, simply swipe up from the bottom of the display. Now let's go ahead and open an application. So I'll just tap into Notes here. To close this application, I can simply swipe up all the way from the bottom of the screen to close it, as indicated by this bar. Now this bar will always be visible on screen regardless of what orientation you use. So let's say I go into landscape mode, you will see that same bar now reappear from the bottom of the screen to indicate where to swipe from to close the app. So as you can see, this will adjust depending on the orientation of your phone. Now next, if we go ahead and swipe up and then hold and move towards the right of the screen, you'll open the multitasking menu, and this will allow you to cycle through all of your open apps and quickly switch between them. So I can go ahead and go into Notes, or from Notes go into Safari, and I can swipe up again, move to the right, and go back into Notes. Now let's say I want to switch between two apps. For example, I have Notes and then the Safari that we were just in. I can of course swipe up, move to the right, click into Safari, but there is a quicker way. What I can do is swipe along the bottom of the screen. So right where that bar is, I can swipe to either the right or the left. So as you can see, swiping to the left will switch to my second most recent app. As you can see, in this case, I have Notes. And if I want to go back to Safari, I can just swipe once again to go back to Safari to quickly switch between them. And I can even go further to go through other recent apps that I have. Now this is great if you're quickly switching between apps. So let's say I'm reading an article in Safari, I want to take some notes in Notes, I can quickly cycle between them like so. Let's go back to the home screen here and look at notifications. Now to see your list of notifications, simply swipe up from the top middle of the screen to bring up all of your notifications. Now as you can see, these will be grouped by app. So if say you have multiple notifications from a single app, simply tap on it to expand this view, and then you can click on Show Less to group them again. Now, if you do want to remove notifications, simply swipe from the right of each notification to clear them. As you can see, you can also clear multiple notifications from a single app. So going ahead and pressing on Clear All will remove all the notifications from that app. If say I want to clear all the notifications that are currently in my notification center, I can go ahead and press the X and then click on Clear to clear my notifications. Now swiping down from the top right of the screen, so just above the battery indicator, I can go ahead and bring up the control center. Now this is a fantastic way to quickly access core system functions such as your brightness control, as well as being able to control your volume, your music, or quickly toggle on and off your Wi-Fi, as well as various other functions that I'll go into in a sec. And to exit out of this menu, we can just simply swipe up from the bottom as usual. Let's take a closer look at the home screen. Now, as you can see, I have various pages of apps as well as widgets organized in different ways. But let's say I want to modify this and move some things around. Well, to do this, I can simply press and hold on any application and wait for the secondary menu to come up, from which I can then tap on Edit Home Screen. And as you can see, all the apps and widgets will now sort of be jiggling on the home screen and also get this little minus icon on the top left. And this will allow us to remove the application or widget from the home screen or the phone itself. Now that things are in this jiggling animation, what I can do is simply move them as I please. So I can go ahead and bring it all the way to the bottom of the screen, move it back up to its previous position, or even hold it along the right side of the phone, of the screen here to move it to a separate page. Let's go ahead and move this back to where it was here and put it back into position. And of course, these same can be applied to widgets. So I have this weather widget here. I can go ahead and move this along the different areas of my display to move it to wherever I like. And then once you're done, we can go ahead and press done. Now, if say I want to add something, we're going to swipe to the last page here. If I want to go ahead and add something, I can press the plus button here on the top left, and this will allow us to add widgets. So I have various different widgets that I can add or choose from. Now, Apple has some presets here, but I can go ahead and scroll down to see individual widgets from each app. So let's say I want to add a battery widget. I can go ahead and tap on battery, and then I have multiple sizes to choose from. Now, some widgets will have more sizes than others. And of course, the larger the widget, the more information can be displayed, but also the larger, the more screen space it will take up. So let's say I'm going to pick this very large widget here for battery. I can go ahead and add that widget, and you'll see that takes up 1, 2, 3 rows of icons. But we'll also be able to display more information. And just like before, I can go ahead and move this, even create a new page to get this widget displayed there. And then to remove it, simply press the minus button and click on remove. And then once we're done and we're happy with the way things look, I can go ahead and press done in the top right of the screen, and my apps will now freeze. Now let's go through some of the essential settings. So the first things I always like to set are the display settings. So to find this, we're going to click on the settings tab and click on display and brightness. Now here, first you'll be able to choose between the light as well as the dark mode. Now, as you can see, the dark mode will have a much darker theme with a lot of black and gray, which will make it easier on the eye later at night, which is why I like to, instead of switching between one of the two, get the best of both worlds and actually switch between them automatically. So I have the automatic option triggered on here, and you can see that I can customize this to either switch between sunset and sunrise or from a custom time schedule. So in my case, at 7 a.m., I will start light mode, and then this will start dark mode at later that evening at 10 p.m. So only at night I will have the darker mode, which will be easier on the eyes if, say, I'm in bed using my phone, and then during the day I want the light mode to be nice and bright. So I highly recommend keeping it on automatic to switch between the two. And then beneath that, we have the brightness controls. Now this can also be accessed in the control center that we looked at earlier, but you can also access it here. Now, as standard, automatic brightness will always be on. Now this is something that you can turn off if you want by going back into accessibility, and then we'll click on display, and we'll scroll all the way down to the automatic brightness tab. Now this is something that I do recommend keeping on, as this will be better for your battery life and also your display in the longer run, as it will only use max brightness if, say, you're out in a sunny condition, and will always try to lower that brightness to preserve battery and also decrease the risk of long-term burn-in that you can get with OLED displays such as the ones seen on these iPhones. So again, this is something that I like to keep on, but you can turn it off in accessibility if you choose to. Now let's go back into the display settings here, and then just beneath that we have the option for True Tone. Now turning this off, as you can see, will create a slightly more colder temperature on the display, and you'll see this most in the lighter colors such as the white and the lighter grays here. And then turning this on will create a slightly warmer color temperature. Now what this does is it will actively adjust the color temperature of your display to match your surrounding environment. So currently I have a bunch of studio lights around me and it's made the display just a little bit warmer. And what this will do is it will make the display just a little bit more pleasing on the eyes and easy to look at. Now, generally, this is something that I like to keep on. However, when I am editing photos and I need my colors to be accurate and true to life, I do recommend turning this off, as this will be a more accurate portrayal of what the colors would look like on other devices or, again, in real life. But for general usage, this is a nice feature to have on. And then just beneath that, we have Night Shift. Now, Night Shift is kind of similar to True Tone in the sense that it adjusts the display's color temperature, but then takes it one step further by actually removing blue light from the screen. So if I go ahead and turn this on, you can see we get this orange tinge on the display. We can even go ahead and increase this further. And what this will do is it will actually limit the amount of blue light coming from the display. Now, blue light will in particular affect your sleep. It can even cause headaches for some. So in the evening, this is a great feature to use to again limit strain on the eyes when you're using your phone, particularly late at night. So just like with the other options we looked at before, such as the light or dark mode, you can go ahead and schedule this to a custom time schedule or to go according to the sunset or sunrise. So again, I like to have this custom schedule from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then we have the auto lock feature. Now this will determine how many minutes or seconds of inactivity are required for your phone to automatically lock itself again. Now for security reasons, the 30 seconds one is great. If say you were to leave your phone on a table unlocked, means it will automatically lock itself in just 30 seconds. If however you like to have content on screen and you just want your phone to be awake, using something like 3 minutes is better. Of course, you can also use never. I don't recommend using never, as again, this won't be good for your battery life, and having a static image long term on your display will again increase the risks of those of burn-in occurring. So I definitely suggest not using never unless you want to do this only temporarily, and generally keep it at around 3 minutes myself. And then we have the raise to wake feature. Now this is something that I particularly like and suggest keeping on. Now what this will do is if say your phone is locked and on the table, simply picking up the phone will automatically wake up the display without having to touch the side button or press on the screen to automatically and quickly access your phone. So you can turn this off to save just a little bit of battery, but in my opinion, having it on is just a really useful feature, so I like to have this on. And then we also have the ability to change the text size. Now going into this menu here, you'll see that we have a preview of the text size on the top of the screen here, and we can go ahead and move the slider accordingly to change the size. Now bear in mind, the smaller the text size, the more text will fit on your screen. So if you find yourself reading long emails, getting long messages, using a smaller size will allow for more text to be displayed at once. Now of course this will make it a little bit more difficult to read, so if say you want the text instead to be more easy to read, you can swipe it along the right to make it significantly larger here. Now I like to keep it in the middle just as Apple has it, as I find this to strike a pretty good balance. So that's it for the display settings here. Now let's go back into Control Center. Now we briefly looked at this earlier. Again, this is that menu that you get on the top right of the display, and you can go ahead and customize this to feature exactly what options and settings that you like here. So going into this menu here, first of all, we have the ability to turn on or off access within apps. Now what this will mean is if you're in another app, such as the settings app here, will you still be able to access this menu? If say you're playing a game or something where you would frequently need to swipe up from the top of your phone, this can be useful to turn off, as this way it won't be accidentally triggered. Personally, I like to keep it on as I like to have quick access to this at all times, so you can go ahead and turn that on. And then here we have a list of all of the included controls. Now going back into the Control Center, you can see that these are displayed here as little icons that you can then trigger by simply pressing them. So here I can go ahead and trigger the flashlight, simply press it to turn off once again. Now of the ones I have here, I can go ahead and reposition them with this little sandwich menu here. And I can just click and drag, move it down. As you can see, the torch is now on the bottom right versus the top left. So I can simply rearrange these depending on which I choose to use most. Now, I can of course also add and remove. So pressing the minus button here will allow me to, for example, remove one. So I can press the minus button and then remove it from the list. And then under the more control section, I can go ahead and add it. So let's say I want to add voice memos back. Simply press the plus menu here, and it will then be back added to the list. And just like before, I can go ahead and move this around as I like. On the subject of Control Center, you'll see this big button here that's called Focus. Now this is a new feature brought with iOS 15 and is basically the new Do Not Disturb mode, but then expanded even further. So going ahead and tapping on this here, we'll have multiple profiles to choose from. First, we have the standard Do Not Disturb, which will mute notifications from anyone coming in except for a few chosen contacts, and is great to use at night. This is something that I actually trigger automatically every night, as you can see, until 6:30 in the morning. But then we also have additional profiles such as personal, work, as well as sleep, and you can even add more beneath that, and these will be customized to your liking. So let's go ahead and turn off Do Not Disturb, and let's set one of these up. So let's say I'm going to click on work. I can then go ahead and set this up here. Go ahead and press next. And then here I have the option to allow notifications from specific people. So say your significant other or your emergency contacts, basically people you would still want to be able to contact you specifically at any time, regardless of which profile, or in this case, the work profile that you are on. So I can go ahead and add that and then go through my contacts list to add people individually. I also have the option to allow calls from anyone. Of course, calls are different from, say, a text or other notifications. So I can go ahead and allow that for anyone, or once again, choose a specific list of people. As you can see here, we can narrow that down as well. And then we also have the option to allow notifications from specific apps. As you can see, in this case, I will allow notifications from both mail as well as notes. Let's say I want to remove notes. Go ahead and press that minus button there. In this case, I will only receive notification from the Mail app. And then beneath that, we have the option to turn on or off time-sensitive notifications. Now, this will mean things like reminders, for example, that you have set to go off at a specific time, or messages, these kind of applications that you will still want to come through from other apps. You can go ahead and turn that on or off if you like as well. I'll go ahead and press allow here, and then we'll press done. So now here in the settings app, we can go ahead and customize this further. So once again, we can add or remove people or apps, and then we can also add focus status. Now, what this will mean is if someone on iMessage were to message me while I'm on focus mode and I do not allow that person's notifications to come through, they will automatically receive a notification to let them know that my notifications are silent. So this way they won't be worried if I'm not responding to text. They can know that, oh, he's in work, perhaps in a meeting or in a call, something along those lines. So again, you have the option to turn off that status on or off. Again, this is something that I like to keep on. And you can also have this turn on or off automatically. So let's say you work a typical 9 to 5, you can go ahead and set it for a time, but you can also have it on based on your location. Now this is really cool. Let's say you work in the office. Once you arrive in the office, you can automatically have your work mode turn on, and you can even have it be triggered by a specific app. So let's say you have a work app, I don't know, Slack or something. Once you open that app, it will automatically trigger your work mode. A really neat feature that we get with iOS 15 is live text in photos. Now this is something that I find particularly useful that I really want to share in this video. So let's say here I have a picture of the back of the box here of a mouse. Now you can see that there's quite a bit of text in this image. Now let's say I want to copy this paragraph of text here. I can memorize it and then retype it, or simply type it on another device. Or I can now simply press and hold the text like I would with any other text, and then simply select it. Now, as you can see, dragging down will select this entire paragraph of text, as it has now detected this as a readable text, and then I can go ahead and tap on it once to copy it, and then I can bring it into, for example, a new note here. Let's create a new note. And then we'll click paste, and it will then copy and paste the text right from the image into that note. Now I found this to be very accurate and a great time-saving way to quickly capture information with your camera. Think of, for example, let's say you're in a boardroom and you want to take a picture of a slide on a presentation. Now you can go ahead and take a photo of that, and instead of having to rewrite all that information or those bullet points, I can simply copy and paste them directly from the image. This is a fantastic feature and works with pretty much any font that I've noticed as well, even with some instances of handwriting, as long as it's relatively neat. And then going back to notes here, let's say I want to go ahead and lock a note. Now, notes are a great way to store information, but sometimes you may have address details or personal numbers or something that's a little bit more private. And let's say I want to keep that more protected. So going through my list of notes here, obviously this new cafes to try note is a very secretive note of mine that I want to make sure is protected. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is press and hold on this note, and then we'll swipe down to the lock note option. And this will allow me to protect the note either with a password, with which we can also add a hint, or to use Face ID. Now I recommend using and setting up Face ID if your iPhone has it. Chances are it will. If you're using any iPhone that's newer from the 10, you will have Face ID, and this is a very easy way to quickly unlock that note. But of course, you can also choose to keep it protected by a password. So while I wouldn't recommend ever storing things like your passwords or very sensitive information in any plain text format, even in notes, even if it were protected, this is still a good way to add a layer of security to those notes that you don't want anyone to just be able to open and see. Okay, so now I want to show you some cool things in the messaging app. Now, whether you use the Pro Max model of an iPhone or even the regular 13 model, if say you are walking in public, especially, it can be just a little bit uncomfortable to stretch all the way to the other side of the screen to access the last letters of the keyboard here. So what you can do to make this more easy is press and hold the little globe icon that you'll find in the bottom right of the screen. Now, this may be an emoji icon depending on whether you have multiple languages set up. And what you can do is you can actually change the keyboard slightly. So I'm left-handed, so I will of course have my phone in my left hand usually. And I can go ahead and then alter the size of the keyboard ever so slightly. Now this will make it much more comfortable to reach with one hand. I can easily reach the other end of the keyboard, as you can see. Now of course this will make all the buttons a little bit smaller, but is very easy to get used to. And again, makes it just that little bit more comfortable to reach and use with one hand, making it less likely to slip and drop your phone, which would obviously not be good. Now to simply bring this back, I can go ahead and press the arrow to expand the keyboard once more, making that two-finger typing much more comfortable. Now let's go ahead and send a message here. So if say I want to type hello, I of course can go ahead and send this by just pressing the send button, but there are a few new ways to send it with some special effects. So if I go ahead and press and hold on the send button here, this secondary menu will come up, and as you can see, I have different ways of sending this message. So one is invisible ink, where the message would have to be tapped in order for it to actually open. And then I also have the option to have it come in as a very gentle message. I have loud as well as slam. So this is a way to sort of attach some emotion to the message that I'm sending here. So let's go ahead, let's do slam here. We'll go ahead and press send. And there we go. And this is exactly how it will appear on my recipient's phone as well. So this is again, a way to just add a little bit of flair to your message here. So let's say I want to add one more message here. I'm going to add a question mark here. Go ahead and press and hold the send button, and then we'll click on screen. Now this can also give you multiple effects here. And again, this is exactly giving you a preview of how it will look on the recipient once they receive it. So this is great for celebrations. So these are neat little effects. I don't recommend overdoing them, but for certain occasions, they certainly can be fun. So a simple how are you, let's make that a little bit more exciting with some fireworks, why not? And again, this is how it will appear on my recipient's phone. Now the phone is actually vibrating a little bit to add to that special effect. An app that I think we all use many times per day is of course the browser, and chances are that you're going to be using Safari. Now Safari is the go-to and I think the best browser for your iPhone, especially like that it syncs all of your bookmarks, for example, from your other iOS devices, such as your MacBook, your iPad. But there's definitely some changes that came here. So first, the address bar. Now for many years, or ever since the first generation of iOS, we had the address bar along the top of the screen, and this has now been moved to the bottom. Now if say you prefer to have it on the top of the screen, this can be moved back down. We can go back into settings here, and then we'll scroll all the way down to Safari. And then along the bottom of the screen here, we can go ahead and click on single tab to bring the URL bar back to the top of the screen, as you may be used to from older generations of iOS. Now, personally, I do prefer to have the address bar on the bottom of the screen, as it just makes it a little bit easier to reach if you're using your phone one-handed versus having to reach all the way for the top of the display. But if you do want to bring it back to the top, that is entirely possible. Let's take a look at tabs here. Now, pressing this little button here in the bottom right of the screen will bring up all of your open tabs, and we can simply scroll and switch between them. Now, to close a tab, I can simply swipe to the left to close it, or press the little X mark that you'll find on the top left of the tab here to quickly close different tabs. And to switch between your tabs, just like switching quickly between apps, you can go ahead and swipe from the bottom of the display. If you swipe on the URL bar, we can quickly switch between our open tabs. So let's say I have my flights tab here, then I have the DJI store. I can quickly switch between them just like I would with apps. Now the difference here being that in this case, I'm swiping on the URL bar versus the app switcher bar, which is all the way at the bottom of the screen. So that's something to bear in mind. And of course, this will work both in landscape as well as a portrait orientation. Of course, when you are in landscape mode, you do get this easy tab viewer. This will look very familiar to a desktop operating system where you can quickly and instantly switch between your open tabs like so. The last thing I want to show you in Safari is how to add a website or a specific web page to your home screen to make it more easy to quickly access. So let's say I use Google Flights regularly and I want to access this website. Of course, I can bookmark it, but one of the nice things is having simply an icon on your home screen that you can instantly press to launch that website. So to do this, I'm going to press the share menu here on the bottom right of the screen, and then I'm going to go ahead and scroll all the way down and click on Add to Home Screen. As you can see, this here will be the icon that shows on the home screen, and I can go ahead and rename this. Let's say I can call this Flights, and then I can also customize the URL from which I would like to launch. Again, you can have this to a specific website or even a specific web page on that website. So I can go ahead and press Add here. And then there we go. Just like an application, I now have this icon added to my home screen that, just like with any other application, I can remove, I can add, and I can move to wherever I like. And every time I open this, it will open a new tab for Google Flights. It just makes it that much easier to access websites that you use frequently. So something I definitely like to use. And one of the nice things here too is this does not take up any storage as well. So if, say, your phone is running low on storage, instead of using the applications downloaded from the App Store, you want to use the mobile web version of an app. Using this is a great little workaround to save some storage as well. All right, so at this stage, I want to go through a few different settings that I really recommend setting up on your phone here, in addition to the ones that we looked at already. So the first is AirDrop. What we're going to do is click on Settings, go into General, and click on AirDrop. Now, if you don't know what AirDrop is a fantastic way to quickly and seamlessly transfer large amounts of data between your iPhone, your iPad, and Mac, basically any Apple devices that you may have. This is a great feature to have, and I use it, I would say, almost every day, but there's one thing that I really suggest doing, and that is make sure that your settings, your visibility settings, are never set to everyone. This will basically allow anyone to detect your phone and basically send you files whenever they want. Now, of course, in order for a file to be downloaded to your iPhone, you would still have to actively accept it. But let's say if you're walking around in public, you wouldn't want your phone to be visible for anyone to just send you anything, whether it be a photo or video or text or whatever it is. So to keep this more private, I suggest clicking on Contacts Only, as this way only people in your address book will be able to find your phone on the AirDrop menu, and it will only be then able to send you or receive items from you as well. And then let's go down here and scroll into the background app refresh menu. Now, this is something that I highly recommend that you optimize and really go through to look at exactly what apps you use frequently and what apps you want running in the background. Now, automatically, this will be activated for almost all applications, but in reality, most apps do not need to be running in the background constantly, taking battery life as well. So this is a great battery saving tip. So just go through your apps one day and see, okay, this app, for example, the Apple App Store, right? This is an app I use occasionally, and that definitely does not need to be running in the background. So simply turn off background app refresh. Now, you also have the option to turn it off for all applications. This is something that I don't recommend, as some applications, say, for example, Maps or your email, are useful to allow to run in the background to always fetch data and keep you up to date. For example, Maps, especially if, say, you're using your turn-by-turn directions, you would want that to be always running when you are using it. Or again, with Mail, you'd want your inbox to be up to date. But again, other apps like your App Store, your Books app, for example, these things really don't need to be running in the background. So again, this will definitely positively impact your battery life as well. And then going back to the main settings page here, we're going to click on Siri and search. Now, Siri is a great way to, of course, ask for simple information, to remind you for things, but there's multiple ways to actually trigger and start Siri. So the first is, of course, to use the trigger word. I'm not going to say this to not trigger any of your Siris here, but you can read out this phrase to start Siri automatically. Now, this is great, as of course, it makes it very easy to access Siri, but as a result, what this means is your phone will be constantly listening for that trigger phrase as long as this setting is turned on. Now, what this will mean is, once again, yes, your phone will be listening to you at all times and will also have the microphone on at all times, which will have a significant impact on battery life. So this particular setting will have a huge impact on how much battery you end up having each day. So I highly recommend turning this off and instead use the side button to activate Siri. So what I can do is press and hold the side button here, and that will trigger Siri. I can say, "Hey Siri, what's the weather?"
It's currently cloudy and 4 degrees.
And as you can see, because I said the trigger word, I have my HomePod in the background responding as well as my phone here. But you get the point. Simply press and hold the side button to quickly activate Siri, and then you can tap away to close it as well. And this, once again, will save you a lot of battery in the long run. We have also the option to allow Siri when locked. This is something that I definitely suggest keeping off, as Siri can be used to also send notifications, or send messages, and really get you a lot of personal information that is on your phone. So you wouldn't want this to be accessed by someone who does not have your password or basically have access to your phone. So make sure that Siri cannot be used when your phone is locked. Therefore, press and holding the side button as long as the phone is locked will not trigger Siri, only once I am in the phone and it is unlocked like it is now. While we're on the subject of security here, let's go into the Face ID and passcode settings. Now I quickly have to type in my passcode here, and this will give us the option to give what kind of controls we would like Face ID to have. I like to keep all of these on as I'm a big fan of Face ID and find it to be quite secure. But if we scroll all the way down here, we have the option under Allow Access when locked. Now what this will mean is what kind of device or what kind of settings and features on your phone can be accessed as long as it is locked. Now, my suggestion here is turn off all of these except for maybe wallets. Personally, I like to use wallet, for example, for transportation to quickly tap in and out when using the tube like I do here in London. But all these other settings, keep them off, as you wouldn't want someone being able to access your notifications who doesn't have your password, for example, right? Or you wouldn't want accessing your phone. And then here again, we have the ability to turn off Siri. So just for security reasons and just for general safety, I suggest keeping all of these off, especially also USB accessories. This way, if your phone is plugged into a computer or something, it cannot be accessed or synced or anything like that. And then beneath that, we have the option to actually erase the data on the phone after 10 failed passcode attempts. So if, say, your phone ever gets stolen, for example, right, the first thing that person is probably going to want to do is try to unlock your phone by guessing your password. Well, this way, with 10 failed attempts, your phone will automatically erase itself. And this means that at least your data is protected. Now, if your data is backed up to iCloud or, say, your MacBook or your Mac, which I always recommend doing, then this will be no problem, as you'll always have a copy of your data and it won't get into anyone else's hands with this feature on. So I always suggest keeping this on as well. I want to go ahead and show you some camera settings here. So scrolling through the settings page here, we can scroll down to camera, and this will allow us to actually change the video format. So under video, you have two presets, both your normal recording video mode as well as your slow motion mode. You can go ahead and tap on these individually to change the format as well as the resolution and frame rate. Now, of course, the higher the resolution, so let's say 4K 60, the better the quality, but of course this will take up significantly more space and also storage. So depending on what you use your phone for, whether you're just shooting video for social media or whether you're actually making videos out of it, you might want to adjust this accordingly. I like to have it at 1080p at 60 FPS, but I do change this quite frequently, so depending on what I'm filming with my phone. For example, if I'm filming anything that I want to include in a YouTube video, I automatically choose 4K at 30 FPS to match the camera that I'm filming with right now. But for normal day-to-day use, I like 1080p as it just takes up less storage. Now, I can also adjust the same thing for the slow motion mode, whether it be 120 or 240 FPS. Now, to make a long story short, the greater the frames per second, the more the footage can be slowed down in post-production. So 240 FPS footage can be slowed down to a much more significant rate than, say, 120 frame per second footage, but will again take up more storage. And because the frame rate is higher, the footage will also be significantly darker. So I think 120 frames, that is basically 4 times slower than regular speed, is plenty enough. And then just beneath that, we have the option to turn on and off your grid. Now, the grid is basically this 3x3 little grid that you see on your screen here. You can kind of see it. I'm just going to hold my hand there in front of the lens to make it more clear. And this is this grid that will divide the screen into thirds, both in the vertical and the horizontal axes. And this makes it easier to simply align or to frame up your shot. So it's always good to either center things or to keep subjects along the thirds. So whether it be this corner, or any of these corners, really be along the thirds of the screen, as this makes it more visually pleasing to look at. So having the grid on just makes it a little bit easier to frame up your shots. And then one of the new camera features that we got with the new iPhone 13 as well as the iPhone 13 Pro models is photographic styles. Now, to access this, you simply want to swipe up from the camera app, and you can see this opens a whole array of additional settings that we can use, also things like your self timer, for example, but this also includes photographic styles, and that's the third icon that we have here. And this will allow us to cycle through different styles. So you can see I have standard, rich contrast, vibrant, etc. I particularly like the rich contrast photographic style, as this will highlight the darker as well as the lighter parts of the frame and create a little bit more of that contrast and dynamic range. And that's exactly what this does, is it will sort of adjust the picture profile of your camera, not just adding a filter to the photo, but actually adjusting the way that your camera interprets the scene. And this will also apply this consistent effect to all of your photos, unless of course you change it back. So this is great if you're going for a consistent look. And of course you can also fine tune these picture profiles further here with these settings. So you can go in and swipe between them like so, and then simply swipe back down to exit out of the menu. Now in my full iPhone 13 review, I do go more in depth into the other camera features that come with this phone. So I do recommend checking this out if you have a chance, but I think photographic styles has to be the main one and is one that I wanted to include in this video. One more useful setting that I want to share is in the settings tab, and this has to do with how your phone displays a new notification. Now, of course, you can have an audible feedback, so you'll have the sound come out of your speakers, or you can have the phone vibrate. But the last way that you can also show a new notification come in is to actually trigger the flash unit that is on the back of the phone. Now, to turn this on, we're going to go into the settings app here, and then we're going to scroll down into accessibility, and then scroll down to audio visual, and then we'll go down to LED flash for alerts. And then turning this on will also trigger the flash to quickly go off whenever you get a new notification. This is particularly nice if, say, you have your phone down on the table and you don't want to disturb others. You just simply want to quickly visually see that notification come in. I think there's definitely instances where I like to have this feature on, and this is how you can trigger it, turn it on and off in the accessibility settings page. And then the second to last thing that I want to show you is to simply go into your notification settings here, and just like with the background app refresh, go through all of your applications and manually select your requirements for each app. So there's many applications, they will all want to send you notifications, but believe me, for your mental well-being, it is good to limit the number of notifications that you have coming in, or at least make it so that the ones that you do have coming in are actually important and worth your time and are worth checking your phone for. So for example, here we can go ahead and adjust whether you want the notification to show up just on the lock screen, or only in the notification center, or to actually show you whilst using another app. So for many applications, especially ones that aren't time sensitive or particularly important, such as the Amazon app here, I will only allow the notifications to come in through the notification center. So I have to swipe down in the notification center to see them here. Now this means I can just quickly check them once per day or so, make sure I'm caught up to date, but then I don't need these notifications to actually interrupt me while I'm working or whatever task I happen to be doing, as I only allow important notifications to actually come in directly onto my lock screen. So again, these are things like messages, banking app or security apps, these kind of things, not just shopping apps, for example. And just like with background app refresh, the less notifications you have coming in, the less battery that your phone is going to take as well. So this is not only good for your personal well-being, it is also good for the battery life of your phone. Lastly, I want to show you some iCloud settings. Now to go to the iCloud settings, click on your name on the top of the settings page, and then we're going to click on your device. So in this case, I have the iPhone 13, and there are two things that I really suggest you have on, and the first is Find My iPhone, and the second is iCloud Backup. Now, turning on Find My iPhone is great, as this will mean that you can find your iPhone in the event that you lose it, or say it gets stolen, and this will also give you the option to manually erase your phone should you choose to do so. And then secondly, iCloud Backup is of course fantastic too. This means a constant backup will be made of your phone every day, so all of your files will always be safe in iCloud. Again, if your phone breaks, gets stolen, gets lost, etc., you can buy a new phone and then just simply restore from that backup and not have to worry about losing any data. Now, you may have to buy a little bit of additional storage with iCloud. As standard, you only get 5 gigabytes, which is not a lot. However, I have a 50 gigabyte plan, and that only costs $1 per month. And to have that security of knowing that there's always a backup of my phone that is stored safe and made in the background every day, $1 per month, I think, is a very small price to pay. Alright guys, so that brings me to the end of this video, showing you some of my favorite tips and tricks for the iPhone 13, some of its new features, as well as how to optimize your performance, as well as the battery life. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've made it to the end of this video, please let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions or feedback, I would love to hear from you as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you would like to learn more about the iPhone 13, be sure to check out my full unboxing video, as well as my separate review video, which I will leave linked on screen right now. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.